in the overall scheme of things in American memorial construction, once we get into the late 1800s, early 1900s, stones moved away from marble and brownstone and other regional materials, and granite took over and was produced in large quantities. The mechanization improved for manufacturing, and monuments like this became common for people that had the means to afford them. This is a gorgeous granite monument here. Beautiful raised letters that are projecting out of the stone about 5/8 of an inch. And this is the headstone portion, and amazing carving work here as well. A lot of handwork here, and really a beautifully executed monument with very decorative lettering. I don't know the exact name offhand of this style of lettering, but there's books made that have many different styles. Each one has a specific name. So anyhow, I always loved when they made the bases like this, and so they would make this margin here and do this tooling right up to here, and then they make it look like it grew out of the rock. If you come over here on this side, they did the same thing on the side, so it would be most pronounced in the corner here. And so the monument is completely finished and smoothed out and made like a typical monument would be in that era. However, then they just ended that work here and made this very rough and crude behind that. So it's a very kind of unique way they would contrast the kind of stone being carved out of a block of rock. And you don't see this style anymore. This takes a tremendous amount of skill and time and labor to execute this kind of quality craftsmanship. But this is something that is not uncommon to see from around the early 1900s. I didn't even check the dates, and in fact on this, it just has a family name because the actual footstones match, and the footstones are down at the foot of the grave. Common confusion about historic sites is the orientation of the footstones and the headstones and how they were laid out. So here we see the dates on the footstones, and so provided that these were carved around the era that they are indicating, we have an 1872, a 1908, a 1915, and a 1935. So I would, based on what I'm seeing here, and also raised corner blocks that match the site, the A goes with Affleck, and so that shows that they own this whole piece of real estate. Now, the oldest date here, 1872, I think this stone was backdated because it's also for only a 1-year-old child. But that monument to me appears to be something that was made more around 1908. So I think when they, in the early 1900s, when they made the monument, they added this marker for a child that had passed away. Maybe they had a smaller marble stone they replaced. If we walk over to this side, you'll see something interesting as well. The family plot has graves going on both sides of the lot. However, these are more modern, simpler stones, and you can see how the elegance of the raised lettering and all the finish work on the top edge of the marker with the finished margin has all disappeared. And so these are more typical modern 2x1 raised markers, and the letters are now sandblasted instead of hand carved, which is the way they're commonly made today on the vast majority of memorials. So it shows you the comparison between the more modern style, which is much simpler and not nearly as elegant as the historic lettering, which is something you don't see done often today because of the costs associated with the work, the extra work, the craftsmanship involved. It can be done if you have the means to do it, but it is not common to see raised letters on a modern stone. You can see also what's interesting here is the amount of letters here and how close they are together and how it just comes right up to the edge. So this had to be a real tough marker to make, and somebody put a tremendous amount of time and effort into this carving, someone now that is long forgotten and unknown. Anyhow, I appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you learned a few things about granite and historic carving techniques.